points that were made here. First of all, I want to address the point about having Puerto Ricans who were born or raised here in the United States vote on the issue of Puerto Rico. I'm categorically opposed to that. I think it's a logistical nightmare. I experienced it 15 years ago when they attempted to do the mainland plebiscite. We actually saw people voting 3 or 4 times in bodegas and so on, where they're supposed to be polling sites. I don't know who's going to pay for that election. And I think that also the Puerto Rico diaspora has evolved here in the United States, especially in a manner that I think they would be better suited and perhaps feel more comfortable letting the people of Puerto Rico decide if and when they do. We will be there to help, and we will be there to campaign, as I'm doing here. Okay, but it is a logistical nightmare. In fact, I would dare you to try to find the Puerto Rican Dominicans, and there are Puerto Rican Dominicans, or Puerto Rican Ecuadorians, or Puerto Rican Irish, and ask them whether they should be voting or not. And then you try to figure out whether you're going to give them a voting card, for that matter. So I think that's a concept that's totally out left field somewhere. Second, I also think that the you know, I feel very strong about this, and I'll tell you, you know, I grew up in the Vietnam War era, you know, and I was a dissenter. I was against the war in Vietnam, and that era left a great impact. When I became a father, it became even more pronounced because I had friends that I lost in Vietnam, and I've had friends who were lost in Iraq and Iran, and it just roused me that I have a son who's the center of my life, the center of my life. We go to Puerto Rico, he can be taken into the Army, give up his life or give up his limb, and we have nothing to say about it. I mean, how basic can you get? I mean, that is perhaps the most grassroots, the most least common denominator of how strongly we feel, especially those of us who love this country. And we do love the United States, and we love Puerto Rico. Somebody asked me once, well, who do you love more, Puerto Rico or the United States? Well, then ask me who I love more, my mother or my father. My mother is the cultural mother of Puerto Rico, and my political father is the Constitution of the United States. And I back that statement up anywhere. And that's what you have to do. Thank you.
I know we're going to have time for people to present on any subject, status or otherwise, in a few minutes. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to move into reports from the breakout session, and then we'll have open to the public, open for everybody here to talk about whatever issues they want for a couple of minutes, and hopefully stick into that couple of minute limit. So.
Thank you. So we're going to transition to I know that we've already had a great deal of participation from folks who have traveled from everywhere in order to be part of this conversation. We're going to transition. I guess I should start by thanking the panel. So we're going to transition to get some reports from the breakout sessions just very briefly, and then open the floor to folks who have come to participate. We want to make sure that we give folks who have something to say, something that they want the task force to hear, an opportunity to say that. I think we've gotten some of that already on the status question, but we welcome to more, not just on the status question, although that is of course welcome, but also on the economic issues that we're discussing. So with that, let me, I think I might call on Gabi first to talk about the economic development and financial fitness breakout session.
All right. Hang on. Now I got to go
Sorry,
back.
you were supposed to go third, and I flipped it on you.
No, it's okay. I actually thought Cece was going to do the comment.
Well, you were both part of the...
That's true. We could share. Okay. So essentially, the Economic Development Task Force and Finance Task Force, we were focusing obviously on economic development on the island, around issues related to jobs creation and sort of the different types of financial processes that could take place to move that forward. Hang on a second. Give me a minute. No, I'm going backwards. Okay. So, certain points came up, I think, that were relevant for all. The first was Well, there was a discussion around, well, the political sovereignty, never mind. Looking at the economic development agenda as something that needs to be rethought, reanalyzed in terms of what the relationship between the United States and the island would be apart from the issue of status. There was some issues related to Puerto Rico's fiscal autonomy and the types of mechanisms that are currently in place, what could be reviewed and what could be thought through in the future. Issues related to tax credits were discussed and how those might be thought through again in a different manner. As well as the idea of the island acting as a sort of an opening, I should say, a doorway to Latin America and the Caribbean as a possibility, and what that would look like and could look like. There were some different discussions around that. Discussions around the formal economy and property tax as well, and there was several recommendations to think about related to the tax structure. And let's see, and also some suggestions of programs that could be revisited, such as one from the USDA that I guess has been closed out, and a discussion around the possibility of re-examining the concepts of empowerment zones.
Great. Thanks, Gabby. Cece, anything to add?
I guess I would just add that I would say that a lot of the issue stems from the large size of the public sector, and so a lot of these proposals fall into the category of finding ways to really develop the private sector. I would also add that there was a call for really a fundamentally different economic model as we go forward with Puerto Rico in trying to develop its economy, and importantly that as we consider the economic issues that we also very much keep in mind and respect the linkages between the status questions and those of economic development.
Great. Thank you very much. So we had a group also that focused on strengthening community services, building capacity, and sustainability. So Eric, you ready for that?
Yes, thank you. We had a terrific conversation, and it was capacity, capacity, capacity was really the theme of our discussion, and it was really the dearth of capacity. And that was at a couple of levels. We talked about the dearth of capacity at the local government level, many comments about the inability of getting out funds on time, so the difference between applying for funds from the local government versus applying for the funds from the federal government. So this would end up sort of reducing the capacity of having a nonprofit community because they weren't getting funds on time. So then they
really focusing on looking towards the future and what kind of training we can provide that will match what these other departments are doing in terms of the ability to attract investment, so that we're training the workforce for the future in areas like
in addition to that, on the third level, so we've got local government capacity, lack thereof,
healthcare, allied health,
capacity on the non-government, nonprofit side,
and
then really the talk about capacity from a human capital perspective, really what
municipalities and regions, and municipalities,
education,
specifically
and
around their
really
interests,
be a much
because
more robust
we need to hear from
investment
you
into the human
what you
capacity and
think,
human
where the
capital
island can
of
go
the
and what
workers
kind of
within the
investments
federal
can be made,
government,
and
within the
how we
local
can
government,
also
and
better
across
leverage
the
our
board in
resources
Puerto Rico.
as we move forward.
We also
so
had a
everything
fundamental
from
discussion
infrastructure
about
we heard, and
the right
as well as
balance
issues like
between
tourism
incentives
so
and
it's
more
all
punitive
looking
measures,
forward.
carrot and stick.
Open it up.
On that side, on the carrot side, there was imploring the federal government to offer better TA, more effective TA, and on the stick side, it's rare that you find people asking for more enforcement, but of course there were no people from the Puerto Rico federal government there, but there was an encouragement for more enforcement, better enforcement, and not just about compliance, but about accountability. So not just that the money is getting out the door, but that the money that is getting out the door is resulting in improved results for Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans. And lastly, two more points I'd say is that there was really a request for making sure that the federal government is thinking in a coordinated way about communicating with both the nonprofit and the local government community in Puerto Rico about the streams of funding available and having a sort of almost a one-stop center so people can understand what is available and they don't have to sort of search here and there and find out anecdotally. And lastly, just sort of in that same vein, making sure that the federal government is working for comprehensive reform for Puerto Rico, that we aren't just thinking in our own individual buckets about whether it's education, whether it's housing, whether it's better HIV, to the extent that there are overlapping sustainabilities within those groups, that we think as a federal government how to make those work well together so that as almost a modeling, we can help Puerto Rico improve its outcomes.
Thanks very much. The third group to meet today was on safety and security issues. I know Juliet was one of the leads from DHS and she had to leave, but Patrick's with us. If you could give us a report, please.
Certainly, on behalf of this group, we've been looking at various projects and ongoing initiatives, and security for the island transcends many different areas. It touches on homeland security, protecting the well-being of the citizens, certainly their property. It touches on the regional security. It touches on national security. We gave an overview of the different initiatives that are underway and their effect on the island. We talked about the Council of Governors. We talked about the Secure Communities Program. We talked about the Caribbean Games that are coming up and what's being done to preserve the security in that context. We also talked about the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. And then from a broader national security perspective, we spoke to both the footprint that the military has on the island, as well as the financial footprint, which is the procurement activity, the activity where goods and services are procured. An important aspect of this task force is looking at the economic threads, the ties, and how these different endeavors can be used to further enhance and secure, if you will, the island. We touched on a few specific items which I think bear mentioning. Crime. There's a concern about crime generally. Homeland Security certainly is aware of that.